What up, sir? We got Hoodie Bowie today.
Yes, sir.
Hoodie Bowie.
That's better. Fuck see.
You about to be like just hitting me with all the facts today?
I don't know. This is what we gonna talk about today. I only know a little about a little. So.
Yeah. Well, I know nothing about nothing. So.
Yeah, me too.
How about first thing I wanted to talk about was Oral Roberts clapping O State's cheeks in the first round of the tourney.
I didn't watch it, but I saw it. What? Go ahead.
Well, I only saw the highlights because I was still at school when I heard about it, and so when I got home, I watched the highlights, and that there's a man on Oral Roberts that was pulling up from like the logo, and it looked like it's just funny to me because like it's annoying. It's funny and annoying because Ohio State is just like they're all encompassing in Columbus, and like they prevent professional teams from coming here and shit. But then like football is like y'all are top 5, but I got y'all at like 5. Basketball, you're dog shit, and every other sport, you're dog shit. So like, you're boring. You know what I mean? It's just like.
I told my dad, this was during football season, I was like, Ohio State's the most overrated program. And he goes,
Yes.
no, they're not.
Yes.
He's like, how? He said, you ask anybody their time. I'm like, turn off your Columbus fandom for a minute. And I asked him, I said really clearly, I said, what is the expectation for Ohio State every year? He goes, national championship. I said, exactly. How many times have they been able to participate in that national championship in the last 20 years? I think it's literally like 4.
I think 3 times.
I think it was 3 or 4.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because if we go back, so it's been
They've won 2.
Yeah, they won 2. And then 20 years takes us back to when Urban or Kressel beat
2002.
Yeah. And so I'm like, that's the only time they even were like competing for it. Like that's overrated. Like, and then I did the same thing with Alabama, and I think Alabama had won out of the last one like 8 maybe, and like competed in 10. I'm like, I mean, like
but then also Clemson has been,
and I'll say Clemson is now dominant because
participated more.
It's just in the last 10, I think they've been in 6 and like won 3 or something like that.
Yeah. It's like college football is a very different story than like the NFL, right? Because the NFL is like the best of the best,
right?
And it might be hard to like. I think some people don't look at sports in this way, where it's like so hierarchical, but like the difference between college teams' performance and the NFL is like night and day. And like for me, being a person that's very like detail oriented, especially with football, because like I love the game so much, and like I understand the details so much, but I don't know nothing about nothing. I struggle to watch college football because they're so bad, and truly, like it's just the fundamentals, or it's not even the fundamentals. It's like the discipline is just not there. Like they can, have one good play and then just completely make the dumbest mistake I've ever seen in my entire life on the next play.
Yeah.
And like, that's something that Nick Saban and Dabo does a great job of minimizing that, and that's why they're so good. But Ohio State, I feel like they just, and also the coaching at Ohio State just seems like it's kind of player first, whereas and that can be taken in some different ways. What I mean is essentially that like it's more at Ohio State, it feels more like the players run the show, whereas at Clemson and Alabama, the coaches run the show and you either buy in or see you later. And so it seems like the discipline at those programs is much higher. It's not NFL level, but it's still much higher, and that's why they're always in the top. They're always in the playoff, and they're almost always meeting each other in the final because they're the top 2 seeds.
Right. I think it's an interesting testament to kind of on what you were saying is that we've seen, if we get that same 20-year time span, we've seen 4 head coaching changes at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But we saw Ohio State stay the same. That speaks to what you're talking about. So, and kind of what I was talking about, the overratedness, they've done and built up enough clout and reputation in their conference where, yes, they're going to blow anyone out in their conference. Michigan, I don't know what they're doing. That Michigan's the only place that could come close to them. But now
it's really embarrassing. Like the Big Ten overall is ass.
Right.
Ass. And like
it really is.
It, and everybody wants to say like, oh, the SEC is trash now. No, the SEC gets all the best players, period. And then Clemson has built up enough clout where they can, but ain't nobody competing with them in the ACC.
And here's what people point to. They'll say things like, my dad would say like, look at their bowl record against other teams. I'm like, I don't care about I don't judge the strength of a conference by the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. Who's the top team in the playoffs every year? An SEC team. Okay, that's it. That like you're the best at it. Like it doesn't, anything else you're saying doesn't matter. I don't care that Maryland beat Kentucky in their bowl game. Like I couldn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that exactly. But that it comes down to like an eye test, right? Because like stats can say a lot. Stats can say a lot of things, and I can manipulate stats to say pretty much anything that I want them to say. But there's also another thing where like that I put a lot of weight in, and that's my eye test. And Ohio State never passes that eye test. Right? Every time sometimes they do. Like there's certain years where like that year where they had Troy Smith back in like 2002 or whatever that was. Mm-hmm. Like Troy Smith was a dog. He was actually a good quarterback in college. He was not. He had no skills to play at the NFL level. But he had some skills, but he was not. And then whenever, I don't remember when they won it the last time. It was like 2012 or something. It was when they had Homeboy, and then dude got hurt, and Cardale Jones jumped in.
Yeah, was that 13? Yeah, maybe.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that you could tell, like in those years. Forget about 2002 because I was like 8, but like in 2013, I knew that I could tell that they were going to win just by the way that they were playing. Like they had a different energy about them. So they executed more smoothly. They, like the teams that they played against that were dog shit, they destroyed them. They didn't let anybody hang around. And then in the playoff, they beat down whoever they played against. And so it wasn't like it was domination. That's like the main thing. And so you can see that when you watch, if you know the game well enough, you can tell when a team is just absolutely dominating. And so I knew, I wouldn't say I knew, but like if I had money to gamble with, I would have bet on Ohio State winning because of, even though they had their backup quarterback coming in to start for that championship game, you could tell that they were on a different wavelength than any other team.
I knew that Alabama was primed for an upset that year for 2 reasons, and this is why it'll never happen again for them in Alabama. Is one, and for anyone that doesn't know, the biggest thing between the levels, high school, college, and NFL, is, and you were talking about the mistakes, is the preparation that goes into it. I remember playing high school football. There's very little there is some, but like little to no preparation. You're going out there and you're just saying and most high schools say my Larrys are just better than your Joes, and that's just what it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I remember getting to college,
and we had coaches that
down
really
a packet, like I'm talking like
just
this,
fat.
I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is the scheme what the other team does and like tendencies and percentages. And I'm like, what?
What?
Like, this is what we do? And like, so like the preparation. So I knew that because you do that all the time and you watch film and then the coaches attack and game plan on that, as soon as you entered a backup quarterback, everything goes to shit because like,
there's
everything
no
in that
tendencies to study.
it's like nothing, and it's all you focus on all week. So I was like, fuck. But then the most important piece was that was the last time I've seen Coach Saban be inflexible. He was still running his old what had gotten him that far, and it was kind of dying out. You could see the landscape changing, but he wouldn't change because they were still winning, and they got exposed in that old offense. And since then, he actually said it last year too, and he said it the last 2 seasons prior. Last season though, he had that quote where he said, "The days of great defense beating great offense is over." Right. And that was what he was always relying on. He just had that boring offense. They turn around and AJ McCarron hand it off to whatever giant back and they'd run it like,
Derrick
and then
Henry.
he'd have good defense. That was dead. And so as soon as he brought in someone offense and allowed them to open up the offense, they have been unstoppable. And probably
did they still have Steve Sarkisian or whatever? Or did he leave?
I think he left right after that season.
But they had him at that time.
Yeah, they've had offensive minds, but Saban had a handicap on them because we've seen that's not how Sarkisian runs his offense. Like, but yeah, man, that was the last time I seen it, and he opened up to that. And now their offense, I was just looking at the stats the other day because there's an account that tweets it. Their offense is like the most efficient, scores the most since then, and they put like the most dog receivers into the league since then. And it's like that's ultimately what it was. Like he, in inflexible system, he was willing to, adapt it some. And they've suffered a little bit on defense. I'd probably say their defense is not as great as it has been since then. But
they used to be like, if they got ahead of you, they just like stepped on your throat.
Right.
If their defense had you one-dimensional, it's over.
Yep.
You're done.
Mm-hmm.
And they would just step on your throat and beat you like 50-0. And now they would be beating you like 70-12, like 14.
They're really putting up crazy points now.
Yeah. I'm glad that you bring that up because I've talked about this before. It's the same thing with Bill Belichick, but just like on a little bit higher level.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Belichick the reason that he's so good, and it boggles my mind that people don't get this. And it's the same thing that Tom Brady does. It's the same idea. Most football teams in general are just like what you said. My Larrys are better than your Joes, which essentially means we have what we do. This is our scheme, and we're going to run that scheme.
Right.
So whether it's like power O or spread or whatever. What Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and Nick Saban have now realized, Bill Belichick for the longest has realized, but other coaches and people really in general are starting to pick up on it. What sets you apart, what allows you to be that much better, take you to the next level, is to do and recognize the other team's tendencies, but then not just say, okay, these are their tendencies. Here's our scheme, and we're just gonna finesse our scheme to fit and do what attacks that scheme or what attacks their weaknesses. Instead, it's like, okay, are these dudes big and slow? Or even is this one matchup, this dude can't cover our guy? If we put this dude in the slot, their linebacker is too fucking whatever. His hips don't move well enough to guard this man, which was like Wes Welker for the longest. So am I gonna just, if these dudes are huge, am I gonna run like ISO every play? No. I'm gonna pass the ball 50 times and force you to bring in more DBs, more, change your personnel.
Right.
I'm attacking that weakness that you have a tendency, you like to run this formation. So I'm going to attack that. once I get you out of that formation, okay, now after I passed it 10 times and got, 20 yards off of this, now I'm going to run it because you got left. And so then you're on the attack, and you're able to then control the game from the offensive side.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Belichick has done for the longest. That's why they're so successful. And and it's crazy to me that there's not that many more teams that operate the way that he does. Like coaches still are in that shit where they're like, oh, well, I'm the spread offense guy. Oregon is like the, run a play every 8 seconds or whatever the fuck. Like that doesn't work against another team that's just all speed.
Right.
So, like you have to adapt. You have to be able to target the other team's weakness and scheme and plan for that.
Right.
That's what they do. And that's like you said, that's exactly what Nick Saban has done. He's recognized that, okay, like I need more diversity in my offense. Like they still have power out.
Right.
Have an I formation, but like they now have shotgun and spread and do all the motions and all this stuff. And so like their offense has become much more efficient because they can do everything now and not just,
Exactly. Yeah, it reminds me of you remember that commercial? It's a really old commercial with Kobe Bryant where he was like, it was a series of commercials where he had like his like success triangle thing. It was like, I think it was a promote where he was like, and there's like all the famous people in there, and he's like, more successful, and he's like talking to Kanye West, and he's like, how many more records can my records break? And he's like, more records. And Kanye's like, but I'm the best. And he's like, but are you a different animal and the same beast? Yes. And I think like that goes over most people's heads, but I think that's what made Kobe great as well, where it's like you said, I understand all of us have something that make us a beast in some area. And it's not that you just completely abandon that, but can you mold and shift to a different animal for the situation, who like the people you're attacking, but still be that same thing.
Beast. Yes.
But
dude, I remember I used to watch that before football games.
Yeah, on YouTube. Me too.
Yes. I would pull that shit up on YouTube and just like get so gassed up for that Mamba mentality.
Yes, bro. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious.
Wow.
I actually know this dude. I'm not well. His name's Todd Herman. And he wrote the book on like
I recognize that name for some reason.
So it's very similar to Tom Herman, who obviously is a coach, but Todd Herman,
maybe that's what I'm thinking of,
is he's worked with a lot of high profile athletes more than and entrepreneurs and people, but he wrote this book called The Alter Ego Effect, and he does work with a lot of them on like basically how I never really actually read the book. I've heard him talk on it several times. I never actually read the book, but I've heard him talk about it. But basically, it's like for you to like to be successful, really, you need an alter ego. Like you need that place to like go to. And so he actually does work with like high level CEO. Like, I mean, there's been he's a lot of the athletes. I mean, some he's shared, but a lot of them are like NDAs. And helps them create alter egos. That who knows? I don't know. I never asked him if he actually worked with Kobe Bryant, but where do you get that? Like, you got to go to that other place. And I just think it's really interesting that I think it's interesting how powerful our mind is and the fact that we can do that. But I know one of your favorite players and one of mine too is Brian Dawkins.
I was going to bring him up.
Yeah. And same thing, right? Where he would have that alter ego, that you got to go in that other place and just become that different animal.
Yeah, that's crazy because I've been doing that. I to this day when I work out, I enter like a different mindset, like an alter ego. I go into a mindset, like a headspace where I am psycho. Like it's the type of shit where I do as many reps as I can until I can't do them anymore. And then I tell myself, okay, do 100 more. And I go nuts doing every workout that I do it to the absolute max that I can.
I love it.
And that's funny. It's very interesting that's like a tool to help you be more successful. Because like I got that from started. The first place I saw it was Brian Dawkins, where he had this alter ego, I forget, Wolverine or some shit, that like he would tap into that, like even to the point where he had a different locker. He had his locker, and they had like the X Factor or whatever the fuck, some other name over that locker, but it was still his locker. And like that, wow.
Yeah, it's basically, if I remember, this was a while ago and I heard him present on it, but basically it's not just like, oh, this is a good thing. It's like we have the capacity to, because we have to, like, in order to truly like accomplish and go, like you need, and it's like how people can overcome fears. And it's like, oh, well, Owen can't do this. Of course not. But whatever your alter ego can, and when you step into that, so creating that alter ego and helping them step into that can like,
fucking White Mamba can do it.
Right. And because like you make that shift, like literally, I mean, again, there's science behind this, but because we put limitations on our brain, like, and that person over there doesn't have those limitations, you can literally achieve more. Like it's crazy. I actually need to, I feel like I had the book somewhere, but maybe in a digital version. I'm going to read it. Cause I, like I said, he just like, this was like probably 4 years ago when I heard him like actually present this on a Zoom channel.
I'm going to add it to my Audible list.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to read, bro. Like I have to listen to an audiobook or I'm toast. Like I'll never get through it.
Yeah, because it's hard to just like sit and like focus on that one thing.
I don't know. I always struggled reading. And then like I read well. It's not that I like, have dyslexia or anything like that. Like I can read well. I read to my kids all the time. Like when I teach, I read to them all the time. And so I've, like developed a cadence and things like for how I like to speak, or how to, how I like to make reading into speech. And, but yeah, I can't sit still, like, and just like sit. I can meditate. I can sit calmly and like just be in my brain and get peace and feel that inner peace. I can do that. But like, if you want me to sit down and read, you got about 10 minutes. And I'm like, I need to like work out or something.
Right.
Like, this is boring.
That's funny. Yeah. I just got a couple audiobooks because I'm kind of the same way where, I mean, I'll read a book, but I get very, I guess not necessarily bored because I can enjoy the book, but there's other things in my mind. So what I end up doing a lot of times is literally multitasking. I'll be like, doing some over here and like reading. And it's just like, well, that's not good.
Yeah, that's what I mean is like, it's not that I get bored. It's that my mind is on too many things. And so like, I can read the book, but I'm focused on other things. And so I end up just like reading a page and then like, and I'm like, what did I just read?
Right.
Bullshit. I was like sending an email on one hand and then, like whatever, fucking looking at stocks with the other thing and then doing this and that. And I'm like, wait, what? So, but if I'm listening to it, I can listen while I do 10 other things.
Right.
And hear it. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't know. It's a different part of your brain, I guess.
Well, yeah, and we're more used to learning that way anyway, right? Like even in school, like you're saying something, you're taking that, like you're used to.
I've always been an audible learner. Well, I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, auditory or whatever they call it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. What the fuck is this? Someone sent me a message.
So did you do a bracket or anything this year?
Not do a bracket.
Same.
I had
like 10 people ask me and I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that would make me care, right? And my dude is in Detroit right now and he's gambling on some of the games. Bro, if I could gamble on these shits, I'd be all in.
Is he sick? I know there's been a couple upsets already. Is his shit busted already?
He
lose some money.
He bet. So it's my dude Josh. He went to Ohio State.
Right.
So he bet. He was betting like $50, bro. I was like, what does this chump change, bro? What is this fucking
$50.
chump change? $50 to win. He bet on Ohio State to beat Oral Roberts, and it was like $50 to win like 80. I'm like,
that's it. You gotta at least
it doesn't even matter to me. What, $80? What are you talking about? I'm like, oh, okay, like, so, and they lost, obviously.
Right.
There was another one where and I think the spread was like 12.5 or something like that for Ohio State. So it was just, I mean, insane, and it was ridiculous. And there was another one. I think the game is today. I'd have to look. But it was Gonzaga against some other scrub team, because Gonzaga's #1 seed. The spread was 33.5 points. And so he bet on what would you say, the under? I don't know what the terminology is.
Mm-hmm.
He bet on the 16 seed not getting clapped by 34 points.
Right.
So I think that one he did 100, and I was like, okay, we're getting there.
Right.
And I think that 100 would have won $100 to win, like, I forget what this. I think it was like, I don't remember, maybe 200 or something like that. It was not bad, but like, come on, bro.
Right.
I'm throwing at least like 500.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I think he's trying to, it sounds like he's trying to like do a lot of bets over here, where it's just like, find your one, and just if you've got, instead of just like be like, I'm going all in on that one.
Yeah. Because, but he's probably doing it for fun. Like, he's in Detroit, just like, I think he's on a shoot or something like that. So he's having a good time, probably out with friends and shit. So he don't want to like break the bank, even though he got the bank.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I'm like, I really want to move somewhere where gambling is legal, because I personally feel like with college sports, and really only the NFL is where I feel like I can make solid money at, because like there's sometimes I see spreads on games and I'm like, there's no way. Like,
so what's all these apps then? Because like FanDuel and like, I know you.
So FanDuel, so there's certain restrictions on what you can gamble on. And so with FanDuel, you're gambling on fantasy performance. So you essentially like have I think FanDuel, you have like a set amount of money, and each player is worth a different amount. So like, Patrick Mahomes is worth like a lot more than some like running back that you've never heard of.
Is that the same with DraftKings too then?
I think so, yeah. And so then you have a set amount that you're able to use money to piece together a fantasy team, and then somehow it's converted and then you can then put money on your team, your fantasy team beating someone else's fantasy team. And then I think you get money based on that. So it's all like convoluted bullshit that I don't give a fuck about. Like, I know teams and I know the sport. So like, I don't care about fantasy. Like, that shit is.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So there's only certain states, I think, like, there's another app called Barstool Sportsbook.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, they're starting to get the wheels churning in the Midwest. Like, they have Michigan. They just approved it in Michigan, approved it in Pennsylvania, and then I think Illinois they just passed the bill in Illinois. And so they're like slowly
becoming a fucking, like,
they're an empire, dog.
Yeah, that dude that started that is
Portnoy is a dog. I love him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Do you follow him on Twitter?
It really just started. I don't know if I follow him. I see a lot of.
You should. Yeah, it's probably me liking his shit.
Dude, I remember when it, like, usually when it just started as like just that one account, and then it was like Barstool is for each of the colleges, but like, yeah, like, and that they have that show now, and like they've got
podcasts, they've got like they've got a fucking newsletter or some I don't know what like it's a news site, I guess. It's like
Isn't he like? Did he drop out of
uh,
college too, or did he finish?
yeah. I think he dropped out. I'm
That's
pretty
what I
sure.
thought. Holy crap!
And I
That's
mean, it's truly an empire. I think he's got his net worth is like 100 million plus.
that dude.
Maybe
That's
not quite that much, but like close.
even fit. I mean, like I said, just the fact, like, if I don't like, it's impressive. It's impressive for sure what he's turned that into.
Yeah, for sure. And
that's such
the
a
betting
crowded
thing is going to be
space.
crazy. Yeah.
Like he's literally, I mean, not necessarily, but his competitors are like ESPN, you know, like he's competing with those things, which are like old money TV station, like grandfathered in, like type things. That's amazing.
Yeah, he just stepped in and was like, we're going to do it better. But it's also like, he took the more like edgy route, the more sort of like provocative type, and it worked. You know what I mean?
I was saying because that was missing. I think that's why everyone grabbed to it. Yeah,
exactly. Because like ESPN it's basically like woke sports network. Everything is just like I used to love ESPN.
Yeah.
Saturday mornings I would get up and watch I would watch Sports Center for like the entire morning. I would watch the same damn episode. Like they would play it from 9 to 10 and then like 10 to 11 and then 11 to 12. I would watch that shit and be like fascinated because like I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think personally for me, I think it was when Disney bought them, it took a whole different route. And now like I can't even watch the thing without getting like and it's not that I don't care about the political stuff. It's just you have the worst takes of all time, the most narrow-minded, numbskull takes that require no like if you just had some simple logic, someone to like push back on that, you'd be like, oh, I'm way off. And so you're just like over here trying to shove that down my throat when it's just like I'm done.
Ever since First Take with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless like departed, that was like the only thing I really watched for a while.
Even that though, I would watch that occasionally, but like it just every topic was like, so this woman was just someone said that she had a fat ass in her game. Should that man be arrested? And then Stephen A is just like, no, and like it's like, bro, no.
Yeah, my channel to watch now is, and I don't watch it live, but is the Fox with Undisputed and Nick Wright. I love Nick Wright. Nick Wright's show was better when it was him and Chris Carter, but then Chris Carter wanted more money, and so it's still good. He
fumbled the bag for sure, bro.
Yeah.
Did you see the last I seen Chris Carter? Man was like on a lawyer's like a local Columbus lawyer's commercial, like hawking this man. I was like, bro, you really fucked up, bro.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. That show, First Take, or was it? No, it wasn't. It was what's the? I can't remember what it's called.
With Nick Wright in it.
What the hell do they call
it? First Things First.
First Things First. Yeah. That just like you. I used to watch that and Undisputed.
Yeah.
Now I really don't care because like it.
Yeah, I
was good without them. Nick Wright and CC were so good, but I don't know, like the new who the hell they got on there now is just like, who are you and you're terrible.
Well, that's the thing. They're in this like weird transition where there's like 5 of them now. It's like the white guy that replaced CC with like he looks like he's like a movie character, like some corporate guy. Yeah. Then they got Brandon Marshall, which I mean he used to be a guest on the show, but okay.
He's all right.
They
He's just
bring Chris
he's not a
Broussard
lead.
on.
He's not the type of dude that I want like to
Yeah,
lead.
exactly. Chris Broussard comes on as a guest, which I like Chris, but I'm also just like,
he's not. That's not his lane though. He's like a reporter more than a
yeah, like,
host.
and so it's weird too, because then they like, I feel like the show when I see it goes by because there's too many of them. Like you can't have like 5 people, and that show too. The moderator, the girl who was with them at CC, she weighs in a lot too. So I'm like, there's like 6 of you guys weighing in, and there's not enough time. Like only 2 people can really debate a topic.
And it's on TV too, so you got to like have commercials every 15 minutes or whatever, and so it's like by the time somebody get their one idea out, like it's time for a break.
Right. I think they literally cover like 1, maybe 2 things per show because like you said, everyone gives their like take on it. It's like, okay, shows.
Well, and that's another thing with fucking why Barstool has popped off. They have sports podcasts. Now, I don't watch any of them.
Right.
I have other ones that I watch, like Flagrant 2. I'll watch that before I watch anything on Fox.
Yeah.
Which Flagrant 2 is hilarious. It's kind of formed into like Joe Rogan Jr. over the last month. They haven't talked about sports in a minute. Now they're talking to Alex Jones, some dude that Alex Jones said was dead, but is actually alive.
InfoWars.
Yeah. The first canceled guy. Which that episode got pulled off of YouTube after like a week or something like that, which was insane. Then they had apparently on that show, on that episode, there he said something about this guy Chris Hansen got killed or was dead or something like that. The next week he brings this dude on the show, and like the intro is them just like, hey, we had Alex Jones said that you were dead last week. Can you confirm that you are alive?
That's some clowning stuff, bro. I feel like that's definitely some shit you can do.
And then this last week they had this dude Pompliano, the most Italian dude of all time.
Yeah, tell me about that name.
And he's a not early investor, but like a pretty early investor in Bitcoin. Like I think he said he got in it in like 2017, and so I wouldn't say he's like a economist level understanding, but like well enough to fill in the gaps. It was honestly, it was really good for me, and my understanding of it. He was pretty balanced. Like, obviously he's biased towards the Bitcoin thing because he's probably got like, he never said exactly how much he's got, but if he got in at 2017, man's got bread,
right?
Many millions. So yeah, he's it was a good like discussion and a good way to understand a little bit more about what Bitcoin is and why it's so powerful and why it is $60,000 for one of them. And so yeah, it was good shit, but yeah, it's very confusing, that whole cryptocurrency stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting for sure. That's funny.
Because like we've talked before, like money is just something that we agreed upon that like has value. And so it used to be something that we agreed upon that has value that was tied to gold.
Right.
But in 1971, they passed a thing to like temporarily have it not be based off of gold. And they never put it.
Never.
Yeah. Like we all knew that, you know what I mean? Temporarily, right? In 71. And then.
Do you think that decision was ultimately made? Like, what do you think was behind it? And I haven't done enough research, but when I hear that even now, I wonder if it was like a way for like to protect ourselves from on the military front. Because as you know, if we look at history, that's why most times like countries went to war and were invaded for I mean, centuries was to go and take gold, like pillage shit. Do you think it was like, hey, if we can move away from this, like we'll just keep the gold and won't have to fucking?
I think that I don't remember if he mentioned that in the reasoning, like for it, but from what I remember, because when I studied, there was a class I took in college that was on like modern American history or something like that, and it kind of started with, I think it started with Nixon, and then went all the way through Reagan or something like that. And we talked about this in the class, and like had a whole like study on it and what it meant. And from what I remember and from what I've seen, just like from what I've kind of like looking back, Googling random shit.
Right.
It was to prevent a I think it was to prevent a economic crash. So the economy was like struggling, and so to be able to print more money, you were sort of capped with when it was tied to the gold standard. You couldn't print more than a certain whatever, some sort of formula. I don't know why. Don't ask me. So it was sort of capped, so that, because obviously if you printed way more, then inflation would go up and everything would cost, way more money. And so then the dollar, and instead of it being like, $1 for a McChicken, it'd be $5, which is like, could happen if inflation kicks in with all of the debt that we have, like 30 trillion or whatever. If that were to just kick in right now, like a McChicken would be worth $50 or some shit, which would be fucking nuts. And so it's, it's a thing that we keep pushing off. But anyway, so the reasoning was, it seemed like, for whatever reason, I don't remember exactly what was going on in 71. Maybe it was like Cold War shit, or maybe it was some war. I don't know. But there was essentially there was an impending economic crash. And so politicians decided that getting the shit, taking it off the gold standard temporarily so that they could print more money, would hedge against a crash, because then you put more money into the economy and like more people, etc. And so the idea was that would be just a temporary thing until we recovered, and then go back to the gold standard. And obviously that never happened. And so then it was sort of in limbo, I guess, like until like probably a few years after that, where oil became so like massively important. And so then you started hearing the phrase like the petrodollar. And so then it started to get tied to got tied to oil, and that's why the Middle East became such a target for America, was because of the oil that was there. And so the more oil that we have, the more leverage and more like cheaper we can make shit, because if we have more oil, then that makes the dollar more valuable. And so yeah, that's about as much as I know.
So yeah, like to me, like, and that all makes sense. Like to me, I wonder, because like in the 60s, right? So you're saying this happened in 70. That's like when they were coming off of, remember, we were over in like
Korean War.
The Korean, right?
Korean War was
really unpopular.
Yeah. I think it was till 69 or something like that.
Yeah, it was like right up into that. It was like through the 60s.
Maybe 70, yeah.
And that was super unpopular, obviously.
Yep.
But like I'm saying, I wonder if, because me, I always look at history and the patterns. I'm like, I know, and that's still why, like even today, but like I said, now it's oil. Like we went to the Middle East, oh, we're gonna save people. Like that's always like
that's bullshit.
Like
yeah.
we're gonna go like you go to war to pillage shit. That's the
exactly.
only reason you ever do it.
Yeah.
It's never like, oh, we're just so noble. Like, no, you go to fucking steal the resources in the place. And but like I said, I think if it was like, hey, gold's so much fucking harder to find versus like I know where some fucking oil is because like you know what I'm saying, like it's such like a big operation.
We have the technology is already in place to find, like we could probably, there's probably a device that can like, you can just scan the earth like a satellite just scans the earth. It's like oil there, oil there, oil there.
Or even if I just want to pillage what you already have set up, because like I mean, an oil, I mean, it's huge. I mean, you'll know like, oh, there's oil right there. Like either whether it's in the ocean or whatever, it's a huge like fucking.
Well, and Osama bin Laden, his wealth, he had stupid money because his family had oil reserves or some shit.
So which is why he's connected with the Bushes.
Exactly. And that, you know, like he joined into a more violent like group, but like who's to say that like he may not have, if there wasn't the malpractice from the United States, maybe he would not feel motivated to jump into this, you know, violent group and bolster it and foster it and build it up.
You know what is also funny, and as woke as we want to be, I saw a tweet the other day, and it's so true. It was like one of those tweets again that was like how America says they're number one, but like we're not in all these areas. And it was someone else from another country tweeted under and said, I always wondered this about Americans. You guys are brainwashed to think that you're number one in all these areas, and we from over here like laugh. And I was like, and I think it's funny, like I said, we have these narratives, and this happens everywhere. This is not unique to America, by the way. So like, like patriots, calm down for a second. It's a human thing that like happens to everywhere. Like any group you're in, like, but like the narrative, like I said, it's like, oh, they're an extremist group over there. This, and it's like, well, how do we know that we're not? Like we weren't the extremists. You know, like I don't know. Like, we've talked about this before. I always just try to like, let me just sit in the middle. I'm not gonna sit like, because that's a narrative. If I wasn't there and someone's retelling me, I'm being told a narrative.
Taking it with a grain of salt.
Right. I'm being told a narrative to manipulate what you want me to receive from it. Like, even if it could be something as simple as you saw a funny commercial or you heard a funny joke, because you want me to also perceive it as funny, right? As you're telling it, it's being narrated in a way for it's
being manipulated.
Yeah, to get the result that you want, right? Like, so that just happens automatically. And so, you know, I always like wonder about those things because, like, you know, everyone just swears America and we're so, I'm like, nobody, I'm not saying there's no noble actions ever, but like, that's not why people usually do most things. It's for damn sure not why whole countries do things. Is like, there's not like really many places you can point outside of, maybe you want to go back to this part of the world when the people came to America and the Indians were there, right? Like, I guess that was noble because I'd have been like, fuck out of here. You got 10 seconds to get back on your fucking boat before I fuck you up. Like, but like, you know,
like this is not slide this bow through your chest.
Like, this is not like, we don't like just do like noble shit typically. Like, as a country, like that's not how countries and nations just like, we just feel like being so good today. Let's
let's go help out this country. Right. And then that was part of the thing with like Saddam Hussein had to be, and you know, like I'm not saying he was a good dude, but like the narrative was portrayed that he was like a Hitler type, you know, horrible, murderous dude. And like, again, I'm sure that he did terrible shit, but like,
you know what's funny?
It was definitely manipulated to make it sound like Saddam Hussein was like horrible, but he wasn't even the target of, because like he was in one country and we went in and attacked and had targets and had eyes on this other country because they had more oil.
Right.
And you know, and then it became the weapons of mass destruction thing. Ain't nobody found shit.
But that's what I mean. So even that right now, right? So we always, and we still, right? The new thing is Korea, right? That's been the thing for all the presidents recently. I think it's hilarious that and this is a narrative you're being fed. This country over there, they're producing nuclear weapons and we're going to be noble and we're going to stop it. We're a country over here on this side, we produce nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
More than most.
More
like,
than
we're doing
anyone
the
else.
Same thing that we're condemning, saying we're trying to protect the world. It's like, and everyone's like, yeah, we gotta stop them. I'm like,
yeah,
it's this. We're doing the same thing. And then, like you said, even Saddam, like we'll go after these leaders and they'll show clips of like, look, these people, they hate their leader. Look at this protest. You could do the same thing here. Like, how many people protested Biden? How many people protested Trump? Like, you know, like it's such an like. It's all the same. You're just being fed a narrative where they're like, yeah, this guy's so bad. Look at these people. They're unhappy with them. And it's like, why are we even fucking talking about anyone like over in there? Like, who gives a damn?
Yeah. There was somebody tweeted this dude, Tim Dillon, is a comedian that I really like. He tweeted, I think we can all agree that in the next 10 years, it's probably about time to leave America.
I saw you like that.
And I was like, yeah, probably true.
Bro.
Give me 10 years. I can live off of dividends. Hopefully the New York Stock Exchange keeps popping. I'm cool with the crash and whatnot, but like I'm gonna just keep them dividends sliding into my account. And I'll be out in Maldives or some shit. Y'all can see me on the flip.
Did you see the video of our very elderly president?
Oh, tripping.
All up the stairs. I'm like, bruh. Damn. This motherfucker.
It was so
old.
He really looked 80 something there. Like that was the most 80-year-old shit you could ever. And he kind of like he played off the first one. Like, I'm cool, boom, boom, and then just hit it again. And I was like, ooh.
I'm like, bro, like, and this is,
you fucked up, right?
Right.
You fucked up. You should have, after the first trip, should have been like, hey, I'm 80. Turn around, like pause on the stairs, turn around to the crowd, be like, hey, I'm 80.
I know,
and then go back up. And his ass tried to play it off.
I could just imagine like being there, like your heart, like as a news reporter, like are we about to like see this old dude fall and like literally like die?
Imagine if wow.
That's
what if he like smashed his head?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like,
he's done.
Like
Kamala's taken over.
Before, can we stop electing these dinosaurs as like this dude is?
It's unreal.
Could have been the end for him, bro.
With that said, like I completely agree. This and maybe this is me. This is I generally am an optimistic person. I believe and I think like yes, so many people that are in politics are old as shit. But what that does mean is that they will die soon.
Yes.
And so I think that we're like maybe about 10 years away from having a really like heavy revolution in politics where like people our age are starting to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not a thing where like, the people that are, and this is the thing with not having term limits on most of these positions is like, there's people that are now that, a lot of people are, 70, 80, but there's another class that's been in it forever that's 50, 60, and so in 10 years they could step in, and like that's sort of the counter argument. But I'm hopeful that we start to wake up more and like our generation and even younger generations start to say, I don't want a 60-year-old telling me and like representing me. I want like, give me like a 30, 40-year-old, somebody who's like done a little something, but like isn't about to kick the can.
Knows how to use their
yeah. Knows how to get up some steps.
Bro, I was so nervous.
Like give me a dude that'll like hit 2 at a time. You know what I'm saying? Pop, 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 pop. You know what I mean? Give me that president. Like Tulsi Gabbard, you know her ass is taking 2 at a time up them steps. Like,
I mean, I think we're seeing it. Like I said, I think you're right. I've said this. Well, I do think, like I said, next 10 years for sure, because we've seen in the last 4 specific, and Trump was a catalyst for this, honestly.
yes.
We saw a lot younger people run for positions of office, and a lot just more diverse people in general.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think, sure, so you can paint that however. I just think it's in general because, again, even Biden, I think that'll happen again. People are just tired of seeing that, and that's just been happening with this millennials and the generation under. We're tired of seeing old white men just like decide shit for us. Like, we're just like that generation that's like, we're tired of you deciding shit for us. Like, it doesn't matter what side you're on. We just don't want an old white guy up there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Can we at least get a young white guy? All right. We'll work on women and color. If we just get a young white guy up there right now. Like,
for real.
Good Lord.
So I'm hopeful that that's something that happens, and it's not just like, more of the same.
Yeah, and what do you see? And it's funny because I know we've talked about how the beast is so big and like you can't really change the beast, but I do think, like I said, just optimistically, that a lot of those things, I think, like I said, it'll probably take 10 years for the majority of the demographics to kind of shift, but then probably another 10 years for the beast to start to change. And obviously by then, I mean, what we're talking about, we're 45, 50, but which is still pretty young, but like, I think there's so much good that can happen because they just won't care about so many things. Like, and it's kind of the same thing that we've talked about with, and I think we may have talked about it here, like with racism. Like, that's such a ingrained, it's passed down, all these things. But I think we made the most, okay, this can be argued, right? Because of like Dr. King and all them, but like we made the most strides, honestly, I feel socially, accepting with the millennial generation, because like schools were integrated and you just grew up around people and you're like, you're not that bad. Like, I don't know why we say this, but like, you're cool.
Yeah, well, and that's, for me, that wasn't even and my family was like that. Like when I was born, I grew up in Nashville for a little bit. We went to a black church for like the entire time that I was in Nashville. And so, and then we moved to Columbus, and I went to school with like where I was the minority. You know what I mean? Like there was more black people than white people at my school, at almost all my schools. And so like, and I was homeschooled a little bit for like a few years, but for the most part, I was at public school where I was the minority. And so it wasn't ever even a thought that like, it was a joke. It was like, like the type of shit that, you just like, you crack jokes about, whatever, like white dude got a little dick or some shit. You know what I mean? It's just like, which, miss me with that, but like it was just like stupid shit like that. There was no, I didn't even, I see a black person and it's not like, I don't think, oh, there's a black person. You know what I mean? It's just like a person. And so I think that was one of the main things that I really appreciated and loved about being in a very diverse area and being at the school that, where I was that like, I was around everybody. There was, Latinos, there was like straight up Africans, like Somalians and Ghanaians and, I think Nigerians.
We have the second largest population of Somalians after Somalia.
Yeah.
In Columbus.
Yeah. So Nigerians, like, and then African American, like everybody was there. White, everybody. And there wasn't and there was like friend groups and shit. And almost everyone there was not like, this is like the white people.
Right.
There was, like the rich kids, but there was always like that token, like fucking one little fucking twat black kid that grew up with all the annoying ass white kids, and you just wanted to beat his ass. Well, you want to beat all their asses, but like, but you wanted to beat all their asses. You know what I mean? And it ain't nothing to do with his skin color. It was
Right.
you just a rich fuck.
You know what? Like, and like I said, it's not that there still aren't prejudices in amongst those groups, because there definitely was, and I've experienced them. And there's lines, right? There's a certain level of acceptance, and then when you move into certain things, because I remember when I was young, my parents telling me, I actually specifically remember a conversation with my mom where she said, they'll accept you until you try to date one of their daughters. I'm thinking like, bro, we read about this in history, but like that's like silly. And then I experienced it, and it was true, right? But like I think what ultimately pushed
that's what happened with Bryn.
That's not what happened with Bryn, no, but that happened with a couple other people who I just won't say their name, more in the high school range. And I came across that in college actually too. Matter of fact, most Black, you get to college and you will realize very quickly it's very easy to pull a white girl in college, because usually they've grown up, their dad or
He's saying as a Black man or
as a Black man.
Okay.
Because their dad, like, there's usually either overt racism or there's just spoken prejudice that they're aware of, and it's unspoken to them, not necessarily overtly, but like, and I've actually had them tell me like they knew that I couldn't bring a Black guy home to death. Like, it was like there was no like, but they could like, they fit, like my dad would just be like, you know what I'm saying?
So it wouldn't be like get him out of here. It would just be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Right. And like and not that dad had necessarily sat them down and said, but like just how they acted or other conversations, they knew like that. I've had girls literally like, I know that that's not, that like wasn't a thing. And then we know human nature, like that makes you more like curious. And so when they get off on their own, they're very like interested to experience and see and like all these things. But
they want that BBC.
Yeah, but but then also I've had some that know that like, and they will experience, but know that ultimately I need to get married to someone else. Like, and it's usually because they're not self-funding themselves. Like they're scared of like, I'm not supporting my way through this. And especially if I'm a girl, like if I'm gonna get like daddy's gonna pay for this, and like just not upset him. But anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So like I said, there's still levels and prejudices to it. But I think what really fueled that,
and just to like, I agree with that, by the way, that sentiment. Like I did, obviously I saw it. You know, it's just
and by the way, there is it's probably not as heavy as white girls to Black guys, but on the other side of Black women to white guys, or and vice versa, like as well.
Well, like, you know, I don't want to get too much into my girl's family, but like she has told me that there's a couple people in her family that I probably won't meet.
Right.
And like, you know, let's just say I'm as white chocolate as they come. And
and the gift of that face. I'm as white chocolate as they come.
But like there was one time that I was at her place and one of her aunts came over to visit, and you know, like I was talking to her, chatting it up, like we were talking, like I was like, hey, you know, I'm Owen, nice to meet you. We hugged and all this shit and was chatting it up. And then later on that day, so she had already told me there's a few that I probably won't meet. This woman, this aunt of hers, was one of those people that I was probably not going to meet. And so she was saying how like, you know, astonished she was that she even touched me. You know what I mean? Like that we even like talked for as long as we did and then hugged and whatnot. And so, you know, it's cool to, let's just say when the moment that she said that to me, it was like instant challenge. I'm going to make them love me.
Right.
So if it was like, I knew right then and there, like, all right, I'm going for it. And like, I'm gonna be me to the max. And so that was a cool like challenge accomplished there, that you know, it was. And so, you know, like that, it's a similar thing I think with the white girl to Black dude. It's like it's if you know, it's, I don't know, it's maybe it's human nature or something, but if you're told don't do this or don't, you know, hang out with that person, I mean, it's in the Bible, for Christ's sake, like the first fucking story. So like the first thing you're going to do is go like look and explore and try to figure out what the hell that is. And so, you know, that's been diminished, the sort of like the stigma or the curiosity between different races or whatever, like that's gone for me. But like the fact that my girl told me, like, you know, there's some people, there's some family
Right.
that you ain't gonna be able to, we probably won't like hang out that much with. And so it was right then and there, I was like, oh, this is auntie, let me lay it on thick. And
Let me lay it on. And you know what's interesting about that, and this is what I've experienced as well, is and like, and all, I don't think all of it's bad. Like I said, all of it's good. Is that so? What actually happened is cool. We accept Owen because Owen's not like them. That's the narrative that happens.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
Well, yeah, not, and they'll say things about.
I've got that my whole life, where it's
right.
like you're not like other white dudes, and it's like,
and it's meant as a comment, but it's also still, it shows where we still have progress, where it's like, oh yeah, you know them, and it's like, well, who's them? Like Elijah? Well, not Elijah. You know, Elijah's not like them, and it's like,
yeah.
Like
he is,
you know, like keep expanding. Like no, like this is them, but. I get what you're saying, but I think what happened, why that shift was so cool is like, and Dr. King and them, the work that they did is why it's so pivotal. And I know a lot of Black people don't like this, but was like, when we got to integrate and we were able to influence culture, both through sports and musically, you couldn't deny, it's like, damn, they making some good music. You know, like Michael Jackson
got them bops.
Like, yeah,
they got them bangers.
Like, damn, we ain't never seen nobody dunk before. We was out here just like,
bro, watching old school basketball got me weak every fucking day over here, just like.
Exactly, bro. It's crazy. Like,
and then then like fucking Bill Russell jumps in and just like, oh, son,
like the most basic dunk too.
Yeah.
It's funny like that. And it was, and like, because everything's progress. And I know, you know, that's still the play is like, well, that's the only thing they want to let us do. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But it gave us a step. I think that's why millennials are more like, because we're not hidden, and you're kind of like, well, I kind of like, I don't know, I'm not white, but I feel like as a white person, you're kind of like, well, they're kind of cool. Like, I want to know a Black person, kind of, you know, like, you know, like I've had people kind of like, you know, yeah, like I want to kind of be, you know, like you're telling me one thing, but these motherfuckers kind of cool. I can see it.
Well, and that's, I'm glad you bring this up, because this kind of reminds me of, and this is something that I don't like, where cultural appropriation is like a term that's thrown around all the time in a negative way. And again, it can be a negative thing.
Yeah.
Right. It can be a negative thing, but there's so much in our culture, in American culture, that has been influenced and appropriated from Black people.
Yes.
And it's actually beautiful. It's not a terrible thing. Like, obviously there are times where it's bad, but like, if you look at the history, and this is maybe like just from my perspective, because I studied so much of history.
Mm-hmm.
If you read history, every single time that any cultures were brought together, any two different cultures were brought together, Rome is like the biggest example. It was not possible, or it was not successful long term, to keep the divide between the cultures like firm. You had to create a sort of, you had to create a precedent that allowed for cultures to come together and blend. And you take, and you know, like, you know, you have the cultures take out what's the best of each culture and try to push those to the forefront. And so like Christianity was a big like catalyst for that. And I mean, like the holidays that we have to this day are because of some of the more pagan holidays, but Christianity was so like adaptable that you could then say, all right, well, you guys celebrate the, you celebrate the winter solstice because the days start getting shorter and whatnot. And so you decorate trees and shit because it gets cold and the days get shorter. So we'll take that and make that like the birth of Jesus or whatever. Cause it's the point is it's okay, we're gonna like fucking hibernate until it gets warm out again. So we're gonna, and that represents hope. There's a like a death and rebirth. And so the hope is the baby being born and Jesus and whatever in the life. And so like they tied that in. And so like that's cultural appropriation. But I don't know that I'd say that that's a bad thing. Right? If you maybe if you forget, I think this might be where it becomes bad. If you forget where it came from, or you don't teach where it came from, then that becomes a problem. If you don't give credit, give the flowers where the flowers are due. Like that was a pagan holiday that we just that whatever the West adopted.
Right.
And so is that, to me, just at face value, I don't see that as a bad thing. I actually see that as a good thing, because we need our cultures to blend and to come together and to do work together. Otherwise, we'll die. If you don't,
yeah, I think that I think it's definitely a double-edged sword, right? Because I think, like I said, what's definitely missing, I think what is missing more so, and this is where the appropriation part comes from, is usually, and I don't know if that's the actual official definition, but when you use that word, it's usually that body, that group of people was left out of the appropriation piece, right? It's like, I watched from afar, we took note, and we, right? Which over here in America is just a weird concept in general, because it's kind of what our country is founded on. Like, we're encouraged to do that, but like in general, right? And it's like, well,
and another thing about our country is there isn't an identity. There isn't a race of the culture. Like, you could say white, yes, like
right,
white people came here and like started.
But white people from a bunch of different places.
But it was white people from all kind of different, everywhere. And so it wasn't, and that's the thing, is like, that's why and my girl asks me this all the time. She's like, why do white people not have culture? And I'm like, you're living in it, bitch. And so it's like, we eat fucking Italian food, but I don't even know if I'm Italian. I think I am, but like, I don't know. I'm like 10 different ethnicities.
Right.
But I don't know. Like it could be, I could be fucking Irish, and I don't know nobody I've never heard nothing about being Irish. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's at the point now where there's just so many, and we like to lump white people into one like group, but the fact of the matter is, like, I know I've got Italian family, I know I've got Polish family, I know I have German family, and like there's a lot of there's 3 different cultures right there that make up my family. And so it's, like I've got little pieces of all of that. And so it's not those 3 cultures are, when those people first came here, there was a divide for sure.
Right.
Just the way that our society is built, the way that America was built, is not off of, and this is obviously debatable, but I think the time has shown over time, our culture is such that it evolves. And so it takes like the best parts of different cultures and like elevates them. And so I think that Black culture was like pushed down for the longest, and now it's starting to really like permeate everything that we do. And obviously that's like shocking, and like there's certain like I see a white bitch with box braids, and I'm like, what in the fuck are you doing? Your ass is gonna be bald. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of shit where it's just like don't be ignorant. That's the main thing. Is you see something like that and you're like, this bitch.
See, but and so like I said, even that, like I get it. I do understand why people do that. And again, I think where the issue comes from, and then I've actually seen this amplified on Twitter, these conversations. To me, I know that at the core of it, for instance, a white female doing that, which is something her hair doesn't, it's not naturally in her culture, and her hair doesn't naturally do.
Yeah.
That's the highest form of influence.
Exactly.
That's power. But where I think that the appropriation comes from, and where that group gets left, as I said, is what happens is a Black female will go out with that. Let's go to an event like the red carpet, and they're gonna ask,
yeah.
why is she wearing, that's so ghetto, or like it looks trash or whatever. And then a white female will do it, and it's like, oh, it's so cultured and like pretty, like a Kim K or something, like, and it's like, oh, and so then that group is left feeling like, well, hold on, right? Like, when we've been doing this, we show up and do this, and y'all, like, change your hair, what's wrong? Like, she should straighten it, I don't like that look. And then it's like, that's where it comes from.
But I would say that, and not to interrupt you, but I would say that throughout history, that's the transition. The culture that's coming in and bringing in its new thing gets hated on for a while.
Right. And that was my thing.
You don't just walk in and have your own brand new shit and everybody's like on your dick loving it. Right. And obviously there's a totally like unique layer to this with the history of racism. Like, I'm not denying that. But in general, when you come in with that new culture, your ass, I mean, there's so many things that work like this, but like, your ass is going to get hated on for a grip until it's going to work its way up from the bottom, right? It's not just, you're not going to, fucking walk in front of everybody and everybody's going to love that shit. Like, and it's, like, there's certain things that, there's certain, like, I don't know, like code words and shit where people say like urban. And, that's code speak for Black. And like, shit, there's shit like that where it's, we're starting to, that was okay, but now we're starting to build past that, hopefully.
Right. And that's what I mean. And that's what I'm like, there's progress. It's such a complicated thing that there is progress to it. I think, like I said, some of the things that can be done better on all sides. It's like, for instance, I wish Black people realize as a community together that how much power you have. Like, I think that's something that the white man, Europe, and I just like, not like gonna like, oh, the man, like just like white, like figured out for the longest, and which is why they pillaged every fucking place on the planet and like we're in charge of a lot of shit, is that influence is the most powerful thing. The ability to go and imprint on a culture, on anything, like that's what they came here, let's live with limits, and then they fucking take over. Like, and I feel like as Black people don't real, like, yes, you have that, but like we don't as a group realize like, oh, like we can influence this, and don't understand how to utilize, and this is gonna sound weird, but even weaponize, because that's what the like white male has done, for like weaponize it to get what you want, right? And in this sense could just be the respect or change or equalization that you want.
Back in that time when the Pilgrims or whatever, it was more than just the Pilgrims, but when the white people were coming to America at that time, the term that they used was Christianize. And even the Crusades were a big thing where like we needed to Christianize the world so that they could become enlightened to God and Jesus and shit.
Right.
Which was really just another way of saying we want their resources.
Right.
And so like, and there's pros and cons that came with that. Like there was a lot of technology that was fast forwarded because of the Christianization of that the UK wanted to do. And so like to some extent it was like terrible what they did, but there's also benefits that came from it, where like we have fucking the technology we do today, we have the cultures that we do today, and like our country in particular was a country of just like outcasts and sort of like people that were not in the group, and so they were just like, well, fuck all y'all, we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you said, you only know what you know, and so even when you're fleeing what you know, that DNA stays with you, like you said. So
Yeah, exactly.
because like I said, as even and you can even go back in the struggle for African American rights and things like that. Like in the 60s, for instance. Well, yeah, there was like black and white, but like white people hated the hippies. There was a lot of hate towards just Jewish people. Like there was like you say, because there's still these fragments of like over here. It's like, yeah, well, you're Irish, and we don't really.
Some people hated Irish people.
Right.
A lot of people hated Italians. Like Italians were portrayed as gangsters only.
Right.
Which I take serious offense to.
Right. So it's like that DNA is a part of it. And like I said, I think because you can't escape it, right? But I think, like I said, and this is funny because I like to oversimplify everything. The way you fix
sensitive principles.
Right. So the principle would be is to do more fucking, right? Because okay. So for instance, if you go look,
yes,
this is ancient, right? If you go back, you'll see. Even let's go. Kings would do this, but like it says actually in.
It was like an organized effort.
Right. It talks about Solomon. He strategically married a girl.
That is true. That's what.
Yeah, so that they wouldn't get attacked, right? And so that they would combine, like, and so then those two cultures, like you were saying, well, first of all, like we're not going to come, like we don't get along, but because you're married, we're not going to come wipe you out because we're going to go wipe out our own potentially.
Yeah.
Same thing. Why? Like, so there was like the separation and divide.
That's
but then
genius.
Also because like you were saying, no, don't go talk to black people, don't go to white people. Well, that forces people to want to. You start having these little mixed babies, and then people are like, oh, that baby's not that. Like that's why.
Yeah, them light-skinned kids got.
Right. The millennial generation now is kind of like, oh, you're okay. Because there's something in us all, and I'm not saying there isn't situations where people are like, you had that white guy's baby, or you had that like whatever, we're not fucking with them. There's always going to be those people, but overall, like in general, that principle is what like integrates and gets people to be more open to be like, okay, and you learn about a culture with your guard down because like, all right, yeah, we white over here, but like they brought this black guy home, and now my grandbabies, but but I have to all of a sudden, like I can't like. Obviously Bryn's white. All of a sudden, her family is more aware to concerned about like, oh, like police, like, the way, like, because you had like, not because they had any, but it's like, oh shit, we never even thought about this.
Their fam.
Exactly. But now my family can be directly affected by it. Like, we've never thought about that before. And you learn about it on a totally different thing with your guard down. And that, to me, that's the way you fix it, is like, start.
Well, and like this might be completely off, but this is just a thought that I have. You know how, like, I know for me, and I'm sure you, light-skinned dudes catch all the hate.
Yeah. All the love from girls, but all the hate from the dude.
Well, yeah. Well, that's that. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, bitches go nuts for that light skinned motherfucker. But if you like white, pass. If you like black, pass. Right. Generally speaking, like for the average female.
Right.
For whatever reason, light skinned dudes just get all the honeys and all the hate from the dudes. And the reason, like, in 20 years or maybe 50 years, damn near everybody gonna be looking like a light-skinned motherfucker.
Exactly. Yep.
And so maybe that's the thing where it's like, and it's not on purpose. It's just the way that it's gonna be in our culture, because there's gonna be, which like Latinos are a little bit darker skinned. Their influence on the culture is very heavy. Black people been around for a grip. Their influence on the culture is as heavy as it's ever been. And so like everything's going to start shifting. And, in 100 years, Americans are going to look like, what my kids will look like, or like yours. I mean, it's like, that's going to be what, it ain't going to be like, oh, black and white and this and that. Like, everybody's going to look some sort of olivey, light-skinned-ish, darker shade, like,
right.
That's great. That's what's up. And by that time, Hope maybe that will crush racism.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it has, like I said, you're always gonna have your pocket of people who isolate, but like,
yes,
and like so we've already seen it with the millennial generation and the ones under them.
We gotta invade the Amish with some blacks. Just get them in there.
Dropping black people off.
Can we get a black Amish family?
I don't think
all them bitches would love that. They ain't had a BBC ever.
I don't
get to fucking.
I don't see how black people are ever gonna, like, we not fucking with no electricity and shit like that. Like
bro. Miss me that.
Like,
I would kill myself. Right. If it was like, yo, you can either, I'll kill you or you can be Amish.
I'm like,
pull that trigger.
What are you doing? You're choosing to live in, like, we've grown past these prehistoric times, and you purposefully, that there's.
It's the dumbest shit I've ever, and their reasoning for it, it's the dumbest shit I've ever fucking heard. Ain't nothing dumber than that.
Like, you over here squinting your eyes trying to read a book with some candles. Like, turn on the fucking lights.
It's the dumbest shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And how about the fact that them fucking Amish people got more, like, better treatment than the Indians did? Like, what the fuck? We preserve fucking areas for Amish folks, and we shipped Indian people off to some desert in Oklahoma, and now, like, that's unbelievable.
That's still the craziest thing. That's the ruthlessness behind. Like, I know people think people are evil now. Do you know how ruthless and sinister you have to be to wipe a people? Like, Native Americans basically do not, on this giant planet that we call the United States, or country that we call the United States, they're like, don't exist.
Giant planet that we call the United States.
giant country. Because, like, we, like, wiped them out with our, well, not I'm saying we.
It wasn't like violence.
With diseases
though. It was
first.
Diseases, yeah.
Well, there was a lot of war.
Yeah, but my understanding is the percentages, it was like 80 or 90% was because of the diseases. 80 to 90% of the people that died, the Native Americans that died, was because of, and maybe that's like some fudge data or some shit.
So here's what I'd say, right? I'd say that number's high because when I say war, I don't necessarily mean like we just slaughtered all of them, even though that is a large portion. And obviously we know in general in history that goes underreported, right?
Yeah.
Things whitewashed. But even in the, I'm moving you off your land. Well, okay, it's different if I kick Owen out of his house in Columbus, which is still one of the most disrespectful things you can do. But this country's developed now. But when I pushed you off a land where, like, you're not developed, I'm basically leaving you out to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and that's what kept happening.
You're used to the southern part of America and that climate. Let's ship you to Oklahoma where it's like fucking dirt.
Yeah, and it's like you can't fit, like, and
that's what's crazy. When the country was first started, that, like, there was parts of, like, little holes within the map, and you can like look it up and see that were independent, like, Native American places. Yeah. But the fucking slave owners wanted that land to put slaves on and work and get cotton and shit, and so they shipped them out. Andrew Jackson. The dude that's on our fucking $20 bill.
Exactly. And so, like I said, you leave people out to dry, and like that's what you like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's gonna happen. But I look at that story as well, and that's why and we've talked about this several times, is how can you wipe out a nation? Well, first of all, the decentralization, right?
Yep.
I'm not faulting Native American people. Like, so many people, I mean, I think we do this as Black people, and like that's one of our biggest, like, when you're not, like, yes, I get it. They were all Native Americans and they had their own tribe. I mean, same thing. Why were they able to go get so many slaves? Yes, they stole people, but we sold a lot of our own people into slavery as well, because you're decentralized and you're with war in each other. Yeah, take his ass. We don't want them anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And like, that's how you get fucking wiped out. Like, and I think white people have done that.
They would pay like stupid amounts of money. Or you're gonna not take money? what do you like?
Well, yeah, like so the resources or whatever. And a lot of times it was like, yeah, we just wiped out, take these prisoners of war so you don't, sometimes it was for, don't attack us, just take these people.
Exactly.
And it's like, I think white people have done that very well in history for like, especially like when you got here where it's like, well, you're Irish and you're this, we don't really fuck with you, but we're going to band together and not let the black people take us over. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, the fragments is where you're weakest, right? And like, as sad as it is, like all the Native American tribes.
And it's not, like I'm sure there's in the East, I'm sure there's a similar, like, I don't know this for sure, but I have heard in my talks with, like, there's a lot of Chinese and just Asian in general foreign exchange students. A lot of them said that, like, in, their family, if you're Western, period, black, white, whatever, like they don't give they like get the fuck out. Like,
yes,
they're racist as fuck.
Yes.
So like, and like that. Nah, I don't. Maybe it's less common than it seems, but like, who knows? I don't know. I know nothing about that. So like, it could just be an anomaly, or several anomalies.
Yeah, it's like it's more racist towards just Western culture instead of necessarily a specific like body person from the Western culture.
Yeah. So forget the East for just a second. If you look at the history of thought and enlightenment in general, it's not. It was just like, I don't want to say an accident, but like it just so happened to be in Athens, Greece, where people started to think critically and like develop philosophy and culture and think really hard and long and spend their time, writing down what, with like Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and all them motherfuckers. It's not like they hoarded those ideas for the white people. It just that was just the place where it came together. Like it could have happened. And there's like, there's books about like ancient civilizations that didn't document things, and so they disappeared. Like a tragedy happened, and then all their shit was gone.
Right.
So there's some really fascinating books. I forget the guy's name. Some British dude studies these like civilizations that just have disappeared because they didn't write anything down. And so it just so happened that,
or did, but it wasn't in any way that could be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It didn't stand the test of time.
Right.
So for whatever reason, it wasn't preserved. Well, it could have been war. Like, it could have been people just targeted that shit because they knew that was the power.
Right.
And so like, whatever. Point is, those ideas that were started in philosophy and in political thought and just thought and enlightenment in general started in Athens, Greece. Okay, like tight. Like, it's not like African people can't benefit from those same ideas and the evolution of those ideas throughout history. It's not like it's not like it's reserved for the white people or the Middle East.
Right. Well, and I think, like you said, it wasn't even that it started there. I think it was where it was starting to be documented because, like I said, also there's proof that like we basically all came from the continent of Africa, but it's like, and like there are proof of people like writing things down and shit, but it's like being able to preserve it. If you can't preserve it, so like that was where, like I said, there where people started being like,
think about it too. Let's take music, right? Let's just take music today in general. Something like 1% of songs are listened to that are made and put on Spotify, something like 1%.
It's crazy.
So to some degree it's luck, I guess. To some degree it's there's something intangible that happens that catches with people when a song hits.
Mm-hmm.
Like Good Days by SZA, that shit bangs, bro. I cry every time. That song is so beautiful, it makes me fucking cry every time. Okay? Like, there's just something intangible about it that's just so, like, there's certain things that are undeniable, right? And so maybe maybe not maybe, definitely these ideas that were being discussed by these people in Athens back in the day, like definitely were being discussed other places in the world. But maybe the way that they articulated it, or the way that they wrote it down, or the way that they talked about it, just caught everyone in a different way where it stuck. It wasn't like, specific to this one like group or culture or people or whatever. Maybe it was in the same way that music can just hit like that. There's something that you can't really pinpoint, that it just catches your attention, and you're locked in. And so, like, in the same way, maybe that's kind of my thought, is that philosophy that started there, it was just maybe like a perfect storm. Like, it was preserved, it made sense. The stupidest person could understand it, the smartest person could understand it. Like, it didn't matter your IQ, like it just all like fit. And was,
well, here's the other thing about it, right? And this is the part of, I'd probably say the not, there is purposeful and unpurposeful whitewashing is what they call it, right? Of things where it's like, okay, if I'm just documenting, like, okay, someone told me this, or I learned this, and I may have learned it from let's say I got it from Ghana. I don't fucking know the nigga's name who told me this shit, but I know, you know what I'm saying? But I write it down now, and when it's being taught or read, it's like, who wrote this? Owen wrote it. And so you're credited with it, and it's like, well, you know what I'm saying? Where it's just like, and as you go and you take things over, and you, again, there's no way as you explore or you dominate things, like we've seen people dominate, that you don't take ideas from there and take it over here. But when I go to this new place and I introduce this thing, maybe I got it from this country in Japan that I took over, but like, you don't fucking, you know what I'm saying? So it's presented as like, this came from Owen. Like, Owen's the smartest motherfucker in the world. He's the only intelligent but it's like, and it's not like you were saying that. It's just like, I'm the one who taught you. Like, that happens all the time. Where it's like, I don't know where this came from. Owen told me it, so I credit Owen with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same thing with music. Like, SZA, like, that song "Good Days," like, it was like the ending of another song, I think, like "Hit Different" or something like that. And then she just like took it and reworked it and made it hot, even not like just even hotter, and did a whole song on it. And it's like that, like, there's probably another song that sounds pretty close to that. Like, if you look through the history of music, I'm sure you could find it. I'm sure that the beat was like sampled from a song that happened back in the past.
Right.
And so it just like, it's just it's a different take on the same thing. And so it's to, like, yes, the philosophers in Athens get the credit, but like, you're dumb to think that it was just them.
Right.
That sentiment, the way that the world works, it doesn't work like someone just comes up with a brand new idea like that. There's sentiment and public opinion, and people are always talking and thinking and working through shit all the time.
Right.
And that's really like, kind of, podcasts are kind of like that, where it's just like, we're, if they're good, you're talking about things that are interesting and not like stupid shit.
Right.
And stupid shit's fun and funny, and that's great. And then you can have a different take on stupid shit. But like, you know what I'm saying? I'm being flippant about it. But that's people are always talking. There's always public opinion and sentiment, and you can sort of feel the way that like we're leaning and that the culture is going, right? And so those people in Athens get the credit, but you're dumb to think that those ideas weren't being thought of everywhere in the world, and everywhere that there was, like, thought, right? Which is, everywhere.
Well, and like I said, and here's the other thing, and I don't know necessarily, I think I think that, and this is somewhat skewed, obviously, because history is presented through one lens, right? And that's what I mean by, like, when I say whitewash, I don't want them to be offended. Like I said, there is some overt and we've seen examples of where they're like, we're just not gonna give that person credit for that, or that group of people credit for that, and that's on purpose. But like, also, like I said, some of it's just the lens, where it's like we were just talking about before, when you're trying to recap a story for me, like you're doing like, so whatever.
Yeah.
So that
I don't whitewash is like, I don't care. I know what you mean. Like,
Right.
it's undeniable that is true.
Right. Well, it seems like,
and it may not just be white. It's like it could be fucking Italian washed. You know what I mean? It's
right,
like
right, yeah, right. And it's like, it seems like when you look at history, what we're told in history, early on there was many more nomadic people, but for the most part, it seems that for whatever reason, fairer skinned people were like the most nomadic. Like they were always like going out, right? And it's not some shit over. Like they were going out, and so like I said, you experience things, and we talked about this with travel. When you do that, you're traveling, your experience broadens, and so you can start connecting things faster. You meet certain people and you learn things on the way, and you take that to the next thing, and then like I said, then you conquer some shit, and it's like, well, again, of course you're the person that like is like the spreading of the ideas, as horrible of what was going on, right? Like like you said, it's kind of necessary too, right? Like
yeah.
As much as bad happened to the Native Americans, like there's no way that when we went there we would have survived without them. There's certain ideas and things just for like survival land and hunt like that we picked up from them.
Yep.
But they're not credited with. It was because, you know, and it's not like it was just like, oh yeah, you taught this when we were here and now you're not here anymore, and so we just teach this thing now, like, or we do this thing now, and it just seems like the way of life. And it's like, to me, I don't know, it's not like a like I said, I think everyone always tries to make things so sinister, and it's like it's not always like that.
Well, and that's that right there, what you just described, that is cultural appropriation.
Right.
And so it's not as simple as, oh, that's evil.
Right.
And only evil. Nothing, and we've talked many times before. Nothing is only one thing. It's not only good or only bad. Mm-hmm. Most things are some bad and some good.
Right.
So it's like to think that it's foolish to think that. You got to open your mind a little bit, think about both sides, think about history, right? Because like most shit has been done before. So that's why we look at history, we don't look at history to remember the shit that happened. We look at history so that we can change the future. And so that's the whole point. You know, and that's one of the shitty things about like when I teach history, dates and facts and shit, that's like sometimes you got to know it for tests and shit.
Right.
Okay, whatever. Like I'll teach it for that. But what's really important is understanding why it happened. Why did this event in history happen? Okay. It happened because of X, Y, and Z. All right, well, now I know in the future, if I see X, Y, and Z again, then I'm going to react in a way that's like, ooh, this is maybe bad or maybe good, like based on what I know about history. And so I think too often we think of history is treated like it's just remember where we came from. I don't give a fuck about where we came from. Where are we going?
You know something else interesting I just thought of as you were saying that is like, it also, these great ideas, it depends on where your society, where you're living at, where they're at as a society.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Like, let's say for instance, like Thomas Edison was, let's say, credited with creating the light bulb, or was it him or Einstein? Whatever, Thomas Edison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, how do we know someone else didn't discover that? Was showing his people, like, and we talked about this before, where it's like, hey, look what I found. And you're like,
Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, like, bro, like, what are you on, bro? Like, you like witchcraft or something? Like, kill this dude. And you're like, you just wiped out like an entire discovery of something because you as a society weren't ready to accept it.
And like Galileo was the same thing.
Right.
He was like trying to study the earth and shit and space and stuff.
But like, thankfully, like I said, those people were at least it was like documented, where it's like, but how many, like, I always think about that. It's like,
but that's how it works though, is it's the way that history comes together is there was probably 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 people like Galileo before that probably like taught Galileo.
Right.
Sorry, I stuttered.
No, you're right. That's how it works.
So by the time it was just like leaning on the culture until it eventually, and then it, they let Galileo get so far, and then they were like, kill this motherfucker. But then that was enough to then push it to the next person and the next
Right.
person, and then you have fucking Edison and Einstein.
Right.
So it was just like leaning and so it's not a thing where you ain't gonna walk up and have all these new ideas, and people are gonna suck your dick for it.
Right.
That just ain't it.
Right.
If you study any history, that's just the way it is. Like, you are gonna be hated for your ideas, especially if they're new ideas.
Yeah, I think
because most new ideas actually suck ass. and that's on God, bro. Most new ideas are trash.
he said that's on God, bro.
But for real though, like if you look at the history, like people have had so many dumb ideas, right? And that's one of the beautiful things about America is we allow for the bad ideas. And maybe this might even answer my own question about why. Remember the other day where I was talking about how innovation doesn't really seem to come from totalitarian countries like Russia and China,
yeah,
and like Venezuela and whatever. And I think that might be the reason, is because new ideas aren't allowed in a totalitarian state. Because in a totalitarian state, we got it figured out. We being like whoever rules, we figured it out. We can usher in the utopia if you just fucking listen and do what we say. And that doesn't work. And so what allows for the United States to have innovation is we're open to new ideas, but that also means we're open to trash ideas. And so that's why people don't just suck your dick the second you come up with some new idea. It could be an invention. Like if you're an entrepreneur, like how hard is it to get one sale? Hard as shit. But once you get one, it's a little easier to get a second.
Right.
And after you get a second, a little bit easier to get your fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it compounds. That's momentum. Right? And so if you was walking up to me saying, yo, give me $1,000 or what's your highest like sale you've made? Not you know what I mean, like in do you do it in increments or how does it work?
It just depends on the project, but like 10K.
So if you came up to me and was like, yo, you give me 10K and I'll help you turn your realtor business into a fucking $1 million enterprise, I'd be like, and I'd be like, here's what I would respond with. Who else has bought it?
Right.
And if you say nobody, then I say, fuck you. But seriously, that's how it works. And so it's the same thing with ideas and with innovation and all this shit. It's the same thing. Even if you're my homie, I'm not giving you 10K for something that you've never done before. You know, it depends. If I had like 100 mil, like you can get 100K. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's what I mean is it's sort of a new ideas that are good ideas rarely come by. And so generally you get bad ideas that are trash. So you have to shoot them down. But when there is a new idea that comes by that is actually worth buying into and worth building on, you have to be, awake enough to see it. And it's not going to be something that happens like that. It's going to take time. It's going to evolve and develop before it starts, like Amazon. Everything works this way, right? Amazon didn't just, fucking wake up one day and own the world, right? Like it started with books, selling books and shit. Books only. And then now it's anything you want, they have it. And they'll send it to you tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like that didn't happen in a year. It happened over like 10, 20 years. And so I think Amazon started in like the 90s. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing is like it wasn't a thing that everything works like that. That's my point, right? So most ideas are trash, so you got to shoot them down, because if you buy into a trash idea, then you lose money, like time, friends, people, whatever. You lose something. But you have to be able to see good ideas when they come around. And so some people get lucky, some people are really strategic and smart about it, and then they capitalize on those ideas. So like, somebody that saw GameStop about to pop, like this one dude bet his life savings on it and now has like $50 million or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, sweet. And he created a Reddit thing that got all the way to the point where I got involved. And so I made money off it. Dope. So it's just like,
I think people have to change the reason for, I think, I like what you're saying there. I think that, because you were talking about good ideas and bad ideas, I would say, as I'm thinking, I'm like, the purpose of an idea is not to be good or bad. I think, and I was telling someone this about selling, but like the purpose is just to talk, like, and that's where we saw a lot of advancement in your favorite area, right? Where like people were just just share ideas, doesn't matter, and debate about the good or bad. It's just to expand thinking, because like me telling my idea that may seem bad, or I just didn't communicate it well enough, or I don't have full enough understanding on something to even fully propose an idea that's a solution, get it out in there, and then someone else can pick up and be like, oh, that motherfucker was like 99% wrong, but that 1% that he was talking about, and then they can and it's for the advancement of thought, just thinking in general is like what's behind idea, like, you know what I'm saying, like, because it's like I said, it's kind of like you were saying before, it's like for the next person, because like I'm sure there was some motherfucker for sure that was like, this lighting kerosene candle things to like have light is for the birds. Like, it'd be great if we could just like bring the sun and have it 20, you know what I'm saying? Like there was conversations and someone was like, shut your dumb ass up.
Exactly.
How we gonna bring the sun in the house? You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. But it's like just that thought like is what stirs and gets to the point where someone's actually like, oh, okay, hey, I know how we would be able to do that.
Yep.
Sure. Which like you said, which goes back to your original point, which is like why a place like America, like where you're a lot, like said, where like, and I say this that where it seems like a dumb idea. It's like, well, no, that verbalization of the idea did what it was supposed to do. It went out into the space, impacted someone's minds for them to think anything about it, yay or nay. Because with that, like the fact that I have to think on something you said, even if I go, that's the dumbest motherfucking thing I heard, it caused me to think. It caused thought. That's the purpose of an idea.
Exactly. There's a quote from Thomas Jefferson. I think it was his first inaugural address.
Mm-hmm.
Probably one of my favorite quotes, like, of all time. I've got it saved. I'm so fucking dope. It's kind of long as shit. I'll blaze through it. So this was the second, this was the first, his first inauguration speech in 1800. And so there was a huge like divide between the people in the country, between there was the Whigs or something.
Oh,
the Wiggers and the
Wiggers.
The Wiggers and the something else. The Republicans, I think, or something like that. It doesn't matter. Basically, Republicans and Democrats.
Different name, same thing.
Yeah, same shit, different day. And so it was like huge. Like they was like, I don't know if, I'm sure there was like actual violence, but there was a lot of like conflict between the two people, a lot similar to like today. Mm-hmm. Oh, Republicans and Federalists. That's what it was. Yes. Republicans and Federalists.
Because Federalists was like Hamilton and all them.
Yeah. They wanted a big federal government, and the Republicans wanted a smaller federal government. So they were fighting over that. So anyway, but every difference of opinion is not a difference of principle. We have called by different names, brethren of the same principle. We are all Republicans. We are all Federalists. If there be any among us who would wish to dissolve this union or to change its Republican form, let them stand undisturbed as monuments of the safety with which error of opinion may be tolerated where reason is left free to combat it. I know indeed that some honest men fear that a Republican government cannot be strong, that this government is not strong enough. But would the honest patriot, in the full tide of successful experiment, abandon a government which has so far kept us free and firm on the theoretic and visionary fear that this government, the world's best hope, may by possibility want energy to preserve itself? I trust not. I believe this, on the contrary, the strongest government on earth. I believe it the only one where every man, at the call of the law, would fly to the standard of the law and would meet invasions of the public order as his own personal concern. Sometimes it is said that man cannot be trusted with the government of himself. Can he then be trusted with the government of others? Or have we found angels in the forms of kings to govern him? Let history answer this question. So that right there is like, that is the one of the like monuments of speech that I put in like as my foundation for how I interact with any person.
Right.
Like there is no, we're this, we're that, you're Republican, you're Democrat, you're black, you're white, you're tall, you're short, you're whatever, you're this, you're that. Doesn't fucking matter. Like, can you think and speak in a way that is logical and makes sense and is good for everything, good for me, for my family, for my friends, for my like society, for my community, for my state, for my country, like all the way up. Are we on the same page there? And if the answer is yes, then like, let's get it. But if you're the type of person that's, like, I don't know, you're a victim or you feel like the whole world's against you, then I'm going to prove to you that you're wrong, because it's not that way. And so, it's like, I'm always open to hear anyone share their thoughts and what they think about something. Period.
Yeah, I like that he used the word to reason. And people we don't use that word a lot every day, but to reason means, like we were saying, it's the power of the mind to think, to cause thought, to understand, and then form a judgment around that. Like you were saying, based off of current logic that whoever's reasoning with each other, because like I can reason with you, basically trying to convince, like it's basically an argument, right? But like reasoning with you based upon the logic that we both share. And like I like that he used that word.
And the argument was for bad ideas, more or less.
Right.
He's saying, let error of opinion be free as monuments for where reason is left free to combat it.
Right.
So a wrong idea can be a monument to something bigger, right? Because a lot of people have, like, you could argue that Plato, I don't agree with everything Plato said. And he got poisoned or whatever, hemlock drought. But then his boy Socrates took it like, to the next level, right? And then Aristotle took it even farther. And, like, I would say Aristotle is more known than Plato or Socrates, right? Like I never heard of them until I got to college. Mm-hmm. I was like, Plato, we about to play with some kid shit. I swear to God, we came in the first day of class in college and we read Plato, and I'm like, they were saying something about Plato and we're gonna read Plato this year, and I was like, read? Yeah. Like the shit was the colored shit in a tube that I like formed into a dick when I was 8.
Everybody totally did that. It's like the role.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And So yeah, I didn't hear anything. I didn't even know. I had no idea until I got to college, and so that was dope, because it was enlightening for me. And so, but when I read Plato, I was like, I don't agree with everything this man said, right? And so then, the way that Socrates wrote and interpreted it, I agree with everything he said. And then Aristotle, he took it farther. Like each person took it farther, right? And so the previous thinkers are monuments to the error of opinion, but they're also the monuments of like where the good shit. They are a monument because some of the good ideas stay, right? The bad ideas die. The good ideas stay around.
I think what we're missing now, what's missing from the equation of where we had all these great thinkers and things like that, and I think we will look back in history, we'll pull great thinkers from our time as well, but it's because we're not taught to critically think anymore. True. And we can get into the school.
That is one of the biggest things in my classroom. I'd probably say critical think in general to my kids like 500 times a day.
Which is something that has to be taught. You will, everyone thinks, right? If you have a brain, but like to critically think it's first of all, it's the objective, which everyone's so subjective in everything that they think about. So that's which is why you have to that's why that word's that you have to critically think, because that adds the objective analysis or evaluation of something with the issue at hand in order to form an opinion on it in general, right?
Yeah. And there was a dude, Descartes, I don't remember his first name. Descartes, he used math as like, he wanted math to be like the fundamental, he believed that math could be the fundamental, like the foundation of thought, because it's not subjective. It's all objective. And so if you can learn to think through math, then you can learn to think through whatever, anything. And so I don't agree with that entirely. I think there's way better foundations, but he was on the right track where it's like you want to have something that is objectively true and right and correct as your foundation, so then you can build from that. And so like there's other things that I think are better, but that was his idea. And that was, at that time there was a lot of like religious shit and like crusades had happened or maybe were happening. I don't remember exactly when he was alive, but like he saw the errors in Christianity and religion in general, and maybe like some other things, and that was like what led him to this thought that eventually led him to say, I think, therefore I am, which that's like the most famous shit. But that, I don't know why that caught on. That it's really like it's kind of a dumb line, to be honest. Like it doesn't mean that much. You know what I mean? It's like, no shit. You think, okay, you could think like a baboon. It doesn't mean you are. Anyway, I've got my qualms with Descartes, but like he's on the right track. He just like, and so that's an example where you could say it's a bad idea, but I would argue it was a good idea, but his reasoning was sort of off a little. And so and then, like Nietzsche, I think Nietzsche took a lot of influence from that and tried to create a foundation. And then Jung took that even farther and built foundations and so like Nietzsche was he said that he's a famous dude who said something about like God is dead and we killed him, and we won't be able to wash away the blood from that. Something like that. There's a whole long quote about it. It's insane. He predicted the world wars and like the Russian Revolution and all that shit. He said that the 20th century would be the bloodiest century ever in the history of the world. And so that, like, the solution to God being dead and us killing him, in his opinion, what he said was that we need to create our own, what did he call them? Value system, I think. something like that, value system. And so the solution and so like Descartes was kind of like early on with the idea that, okay, these like religious systems are kind of falling apart and wavering. So we need something better. He thought math could do it. Wrong. And then, 100, 200 years later, Nietzsche is like, all right, God's a rap. Like the religious systems have failed us as, individuals. So we need something new that can get us through. And so he value system was, I think it was value system. I think that's it. But essentially it's, you need to create your own, you need to be your own God. Create your own values, your own, own things that your own systems and principles that you believe in. And like they can be based on Christianity. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just you have to have something to hold yourself accountable. And that was sort of the main thing. And then Carl Jung took it even farther and built on that. And so that's, like I feel like I'm like singing the same song here, but
no, I get it.
It's the same shit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's powerful stuff. I mean, yeah, but I think just knowing we're not taught to critically think, and it's just so tragic, and so it leads to a bunch of petty fights. It's just because no one critically thinks about anything.
Yeah,
because no one knows how to debate either, right? Like people just argue, but in the past, especially in this time, you were taught a way to like you're supposed to argue in a certain way so that there's merit that comes out of the argument, and that at the end of the argument, like there's some type of like clarity or common ground. But like now people just like argue because you're not critically thinking about anything.
Well, people argue to be right. They don't argue to
gain knowledge.
Yeah, to get to be smarter, to reason, be sharper with their reason, or to gain knowledge. Like you get in an argument to be right, and social media just like takes that shit up to like 50. And so like
it's a form of people who's not critically thinking. Like you're not like, and then like
and limited, like with Twitter especially, you're limited with your
how you can express
what you can say. Yeah. And so that's like, it's a perfect storm of just absolute nonsense and people that just want to say that they're right, which is like not, it's the exact opposite of what my boy TJ was saying.
It's crazy, it's sad, and it's been worked out. I mean, even before them, but it's really been worked out of the school system before, because I'm
trying to bring it back little by little.
We got to a point as a society where it was like, okay, we don't really need you to think. Like we had some people who critically thought, and we came up with some really cool things, and so now we need help like bringing these cool things to fruition. We don't need you to we don't need anyone else to think. We need you to not think and get your ass in here and work. And so like that's what they started, and that never switched back to like, no, think critically, like that we never went back to it.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, in practice maybe it doesn't come to fruition because so many of us have been I don't want to say indoctrinated, but kind of basically indoctrinated. So many like kids our age and younger, or I'm sorry, and older, have been like experiencing that, that sort of, that they came up in that when schools were still very much like they were just building people for the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meetings that we have and in the trainings that we have, like that's starting to shift. Like critical thinking is very important and talked about at least, but most people aren't good at, they haven't been taught and therefore aren't good at critically thinking. And as colleges are one of the biggest disservices to people who want to critically think, because more and more it's just it's indoctrination. It's believe these things and think this way. And that's one of the main problems with and I kind of joke about like being woke and shit. There's a lot of good that comes from being woke, but like it's sort of formed into this weird ideology where like it's too far.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think anymore. If you fit that description or whatever, you fit into that group, then I can pretty much guess like what you think about everything.
Right.
So if that's a good way to know if you have an ideology or not. If I can predict, or if you can predict the way that you think, you probably are not thinking.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that is funny. That's a good point you made about being woke. Yeah, you're right. There is like that people in that camp. Yeah, you can pretty much just go like, oh, I already know what they think about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's funny.
and it's not like I said, there's a lot of good that can come from that. That I think being woke in the end will be like a good thing, but right now it's kind of become like this weird cult kind of belief system thing. Oh, fucking Nietzsche. It wasn't value system. It was belief system. That was what he said. But it's become this weird belief system where you, like you, I, I, you don't think. You just say what. You just have these like, I don't know what you would call them. There's like they're ideologies. There's this thing happens. It's this thing's fault, and this is why, and it's terrible, and this, and so it's just like you just regurgitate the
Yeah,
same.
it's almost to me like it's becoming almost like a anarchist like kind of thing where it's like woke
Yeah,
people are almost just like it's just the
once white people got a
antithesis
hold
of
of it,
whatever we're
they just
talking
took it
about.
overboard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Fucking Chaz over there. What are y'all doing? They killed black people. What the fuck? Like just random. They like. What are they doing? And like, what did they do? Like it's over now. I think. I hope. But like, you give white, bruh. Ain't no black people in Washington. Am I right about that? I feel like I gotta be right about that. Well, maybe there probably is. I'm being
I
dumb.
mean, there's some, but yeah, they ain't a lot. I mean,
There ain't a lot.
like
I'm just
Utah.
like, if you went, because like a lot of this, a lot of the like great, what are they, the Great Migrate or something like that, where all the like slaves sort of like kind of went west and north and all that shit. I forget what that's, Great Migration, or is that what it's called?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know what it's called.
When the slaves were like freed and like the
Mass
Underground
Exodus.
Railroad and
Yeah.
shit and all that shit, and so like they were getting the fuck out of the South. I feel like ain't nobody went to Washington. If you went west, you just went to LA because it's nice. It's warm, you know. Arizona, that's nice. I would have been if I was like one of them and I was like going north. I'm like, damn, it's rainy and dark and shit. Let me turn back. You know what I mean? And maybe, and you know what I mean? Like I'll risk it. I'll risk maybe getting caught. You know what I'm saying? That would have been me.
Not risk it.
I'll risk getting caught, by the fucking idiots that fucking tried to capture escaped slaves or whatever the fuck they called them. I'd be like, shit, I'd risk it.
Yeah, I really don't know. I'm not up to date geographically on like around that time what was happening in that area. Like I know that the state maybe, but like who was like really out there to like.
Well, so there was a like California was developed, I'm pretty sure. More
Yeah, but
it was like the
a
Wild
tenth
West.
of California, because like remember California was like it was like where they went out for gold, and then it was like just like hippies. Because I remember like hippies for a minute were just like out west in California, like by themselves, which is funny because California is still like super fucking hipster. Like
yeah. I don't know. But I do know that during the time, I think it was called the Great Migration. I feel like that sounds like it's close, but not quite it. But essentially it was like when black people were fleeing the South. I know that a lot of them went to they went west to California, and like some of them, like, have you seen, God Godless on Netflix.
Mm-mm.
It's great. You should watch it. It's like a movie, but in like 6 parts or something like that. It's excellent. But there's a black family it's set in like the Wild West, more or less. I don't remember where exactly, Texas maybe or something like that. And so there's a black family in the show that kind of lives in the outskirts of the city, and ain't nobody mess with them because like they don't give a fuck. Like they're everybody's scrapping for their shit, and so like there isn't really like a system of slavery built in. So like they just sort of like that's the black folk that live outside of town over there, and they were the story is that they are like, I forget if they were escaped slaves or if it was post Civil War. So
Right.
shit was still kind of funny. And so they were Civil War veterans that like the older men were Civil War veterans. And they were just like this family that lived out there and, like they set up shop outside of this town. They could go in and they could buy their shit. Like it was, regular. Right.
Mhm.
And so my understanding was that they were sort of like, they were heading west to freedom and north or wherever, where you go wherever the hell you want,
Mm-hmm.
and they just kind of shut up shop in Texas somewhere. And so that's sort of like an anecdote to the idea that I'm pretty sure a lot of slaves went west and obviously north.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot definitely. I know someone as far as Canada, because it was just like,
Yeah.
we don't trust these motherfuckers in the West eat.
Yeah.
Like we just not staying there, which
And
is
they
how
gave
like
us Drake.
Canada got like all their black people.
They gave us Drake. Hallelujah. God bless them.
We did get Drake.
Good shit, Canada.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, dude, I'm starving.
Sweet. I'm gonna go get some food too. I also have to piss like a motherfucker.
You should watch Godless with your girl. It's still on Netflix, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
It's good. Report back.
Will do.
All right, brother.
All right. Peace.